Hello my lovely students, and welcome to this video on Demeter or Ceres. Now apologies if I keep pronouncing her name differently. I've grown up pronouncing it Ceres, which is I think possibly the way we pronounce it for the planet. But here we go. Now I've already gone through all this GCSE specification bump on my previous videos, but if you wanted it explained to you, nip back and look at the Zeus Jupiter video in which I've gone through it in more detail. So Demeter, Ceres. Her common epithets are the mother of Earth. Now, she's not literally the mother of Earth. Earth is Gaia. Demeter or Ceres comes later. She's also known as Thesmophoros, the bringer of law. And the law that's being talked about here is the sacred law that once you put a seed in the earth, something will come up. And you must respect this idea by looking after the earth. Potnia, mistress, is one of her most ancient epithets. And Chthoniya, she of the earth, because she literally brings life from the earth. She's both associated with fertility and the underworld. She's a chthonic goddess as well as an Olympian. Her symbols are an ear of corn, the torches that she uses in her flight to look for her daughter, and the cornucopia, the horn of plenty. And there's a few stories about where that came from. It might actually be the horn of the nanny goat Amalthea who looked after Zeus, or possibly even the horn of the river god Achelous after Heracles rips it off his head. But either way, it's a magical horn that fills with delicious things, food basically, every time it empties. So a really good symbol of someone whose job is to bring you food. Her responsibilities, or what she's known for, she's the goddess of agriculture. She does have an association with her daughter Persephone, the goddess of spring, and the two are often named together. And this also links back to agriculture. She also has an association, however, with the poppy plant. During the time when her daughter was away and she was very, very sad, she's meant to have used this sleep-inducing, pain-relieving draught to help her get through those painful moments. She's also, though, a goddess of marriage, which seems to be ironic, seeing as she's somehow married to Zeus. Persephone, or the Roman version Proserpina, is Zeus or Jupiter's daughter in the Homeric hymns. She's not normally seen, though, as a wife, but it's this idea of fertility that makes her a marriage goddess. She's also linked, of course, with the sacred law, the idea of the things coming out of the earth, and thus you get the link to the cycle of life and death. We go back to the earth once we have died. Her birth story is very similar to several of the other Olympians that we've already learned about because she is a sister of Zeus. She was born of Rhea and Kronos and eaten by Kronos, then sicked back up when Zeus tricked Kronos into drinking poison. Demeter is traditionally the second child after Hestia. Let's look at the way she is worshipped in Greece and in Rome. So in ancient Greece, her name, Demeter, possibly comes from Da, the Doric form of the Greek Ger, meaning earth, where we get Gaia from. And the second element of her name, Meta, is generally given as the name Mater, mother. So literally earth mother. We saw that in her epithets. She's also a really early god because we see her name Potnia on the Mycenaean Linear B tablets, which you can see here spelled out for you in Linear B. Anyone doing the Homeric world topic, you'll find that useful later. In Rome, her name Ceres comes from cerealis, meaning of grain, possibly from an older word Ceres, meaning to grow or to feed. So in both names here, we've got this direct link to fertility and the earth and the food that comes from the earth. In ancient Greece, she was incredibly important to the civilization because it was based on agriculture. It grew food to survive. She was worshipped in the Eleusinian mystery cult at Eleusis in Greece. Now, it's a mystery cult, so we don't know exactly what people had to do, but we do know it was associated with the worship of Demeter and her daughter Persephone. Heracles is meant to have joined the Eleusinian mysteries before attempting to complete his final labour in getting Cerberus out of the underworld. So this way he had points with Persephone. There was also the Greek Thesmophoria festival, a women-only festival around the time when the seeds would be planted again for the next year. The Romans also considered her incredibly important. She was incredibly important particularly to the Roman plebeians, the lower levels of society, and the urban plebs, those who had fled in from the countryside during the Republic because of the lack of work. They relied on grain or bread with a staple of the diet. The cura annoni, the grain dole, allowed everyone who needed it access to bread. And there was in fact another goddess, Annona, meaning grain or corn, who was also associated with Ceres. Ceres had a temple on the Aventine Hill in Rome, one of the most important hills of Rome, especially to Roman mythology. And there was also an annual festival in Rome for Ceres called the Cerealia, which was a whole 7 days long. So that gives you an idea of how worshipped she is. Both the Greeks and the Romans tended to see her in this very similar way. She's a woman. She wears often a diadem, showing her importance. She's often got a bundle of wheat or grain or flowers, which links her to Persephone. Or she sometimes has the cornucopia, the horn of plenty. And sometimes she's actually with Persephone, her daughter. And sometimes she is veiled, because the veil was a symbol of marriage, and we know that she was linked with marriage. The main story about Demeter and Ceres is the abduction of Persephone and the creation of the seasons. The Homeric hymn to Demeter gives us the most important information on her and her search with Hecate, the witch goddess, for her daughter Persephone and the resulting seasons. Now, just so that you can get a grip on how this myth was important to the Greeks and Romans, I've put the names in both the Greek form and the Roman form throughout the story, which might get a tad annoying, but let's just stick with it. So Hades, or Pluto, falls in love or lust with Persephone, or Proserpina, her Roman name, and abducts her. Not exactly the coolest way to go about getting yourself a wife, but there we are. Demeter, or Ceres, searches the earth for her daughter using torches to light the dark places, with Hecate, the witch goddess, another chthonic deity. Unable to find her daughter, she spends time disguised as an old lady at Eleusis. She's given up on the Olympians and she pretends to be immortal. Pleased with their hospitality, she sets up with them the Eleusinian mysteries to worship her and her daughter, and they become very famous for this. It becomes rather a destination for people to go to become part of these mystery cults. Finally, discovering Zeus, or Jupiter, apparently Persephone or Proserpina's actual father, has given her to Hades, Pluto, she demands her back. All the gods try and persuade her with gifts. Instead, she promises to kill all humans by stopping all plants growing. Terrified that they won't get any more sacrifices, Zeus, or Jupiter, concedes. However, in the underworld, Hades, Pluto, has fed hungry Persephone, Proserpina, some pomegranate seeds. This now means she cannot entirely leave the underworld and must return to be its queen for part of the year. This is winter, and her return is spring. So overall, we can see that Demeter and Ceres is one of the most important gods for survival, if nothing else. She is responsible for agriculture and for bread, a staple of the ancient diet. If not taken seriously by gods or mortals, she is vicious, like the pangs of hunger after a bad harvest. Her story, particularly the way it's told in the Homeric hymn to Demeter, reminds us of the position of women in the ancient world. They are important creators of life, but in the way that Zeus Jupiter gives the daughter away without even consulting his wife, it reminds us they are secondary citizens with few rights. If you enjoyed that, make sure to watch the rest of the Olympic deity videos to help you with your GCSE study. And please hit that subscribe button too. See you in the next video.